He seized a candlestick and hurled it across the room. Then he bellowed that her name would never be spoken again. But the nobles were whispering about something else now, something visible, something rotting. The king himself. Something was wrong with Henry beyond rage. His appearance deteriorated fast. Months earlier he had been large but still mobile. Now he moved slower, with obvious pain. His face became moon-like and swollen, his neck disappearing into his shoulders. Foreign ambassadors wrote reports that sounded less like politics and more like medical horror. They described his legs wrapped in bandages that needed changing multiple times daily. They described an odor that clung to him. Not sweat, not perfume, but something organic and wrong. Some noted he could no longer climb stairs without assistance. Ramps and special chairs appeared around the palace like quiet confessions. Court ladies who once fought to stand near him now found reasons to keep their distance, not only because of his temper, but because of something more primal. Revulsion. Hampton Court had once been alive with flirtation and laughter. Now hallways echoed with footsteps and whispered prayers. Servants avoided eye contact. Musicians played softly, terrified of drawing attention, and everyone noticed the same impossible thing for the first time in 30 years. There were no women, no favorites, no mistresses, no secret glances. Henry's bedchamber remained empty, except for physicians. Many assumed grief had broken. They were wrong. It was decay. The Spanish ambassador tried to explain the mystery as heartbreak, until he attended a council meeting and sat downwind of the king. His next letter told a different story. This was not sorrow. This was rot. Physicians recorded that in March 1542. Just 1 month after Catherine's execution, both of Henry's leg ulcers became severely infected at the same time. And once they erupted, they never truly stopped. The ulcers had existed for years, but now they turned savage. Pus flowed in amounts that soaked through layers of bandages. The stench became so overwhelming, servants burned incense constantly near the king. It made no difference. By summer, Henry could not mount a horse without a specially constructed ramp and multiple men pushing from behind. Royal hunts. Once his stage for masculine power and seduction became humiliations. He sat motionless on a sweating horse while beaters drove deer into his line of fire. He could barely pull the bow. When he loosed an arrow, it rarely flew true. His hand shook. His vision began to fail. The ladies noticed something they only whispered about in private when Henry walked past. There was no heat in his gaze, no predatory hunger. His eyes looked dull, exhausted. Relief spread through the court, and beneath it, horror. The wolf had stopped because the wolf was dying. Foreign princes still offered daughters. Councillors still brought miniature portraits of beautiful young women from across Europe. Henry barely glanced at them. His body consumed all his energy just to stay alive. The question was no longer why he had no mistresses. The question became how any woman could be convinced to marry what he had become, because the truth was physical. His body was turning into something unapproachable, something that announced decay before he entered a room. Intimacy did not vanish from moral revelation. It vanished because the mechanics became impossible, and the smell made even standing nearby an ordeal. But the roots of this collapse began years earlier. In one catastrophic moment, the court never truly recovered from the jousting accident at Greenwich. January 1536, January 24th, 1536. Greenwich Palace. The jousting tournament should never have happened. Henry was 44, past his athletic prime, heavier from years of feasting. But he insisted on proving he was still the warrior who once dominated the field. Horses were prepared. Lances were sharpened. Men prayed it would not end badly. It ended catastrophically. Henry thundered down the tilt yard on a massive war horse bred to carry his increasing bulk. His opponent, a younger knight, charged from the opposite end The lances should have splintered harmlessly. Instead, Henry's horse stumbled. Some said it slipped in mud. Others claimed the animal collapsed under the king's weight. The reason did not matter. The physics did. In full armour, Henry weighed roughly 340 pounds. The horse weighed over 400. When it went down, Henry had no time to react. The animal rolled. The king was trapped beneath it. Metal scraped against metal. Bones cracked like dry wood. The sound echoed across the field. Then came a silence, so absolute it felt like a spell. Henry did not move, did not breathe. The horse thrashed, its legs broken, crushing the king further into frozen ground. Guards sprinted forward, screaming for help. It took 8 men to lift the dying horse off Henry's body. Underneath, Henry lay motionless, eyes open but seeing nothing. Blood seeped from beneath his helmet. For 2 hours he was unconscious. Physicians clustered around him, debating whether he was already dead. When he woke, he was different. Not immediately, but gradually, like a man turning into a stranger. And the injuries to his legs would become a lifelong infection, a slow rot that devoured the king from the ground up. Physicians removed Henry's armor piece by agonizing piece. The damage underneath was horrifying. His left leg was shattered, bruised, purple and black. His right leg twisted unnaturally. Worse than the visible injuries was the invisible one. His brain slammed inside his skull, swelling with trauma. At first, the court hoped recovery would restore him. But over months, his temper, already volatile, became something closer to psychotic. He forgot conversations from hours earlier, then erupted when courtiers could not explain what he had forgotten. The jovial king who wrote poetry became paranoid. Convinced traitors hid in every shadow, and the legs did not heal. Wounds closed, then reopened, closed again, then festered. Within months, ulcers established themselves, open sores that drained pus and blood for the remaining 11 years of his life. The accident did not merely injure Henry. It began his transformation into something monstrous. From 1536 onward, his legs became prisons of flesh, refusing to seal while trapping infection inside. Modern doctors would recognize chronic venous ulcers complicated by poor circulation and repeated trauma. Tudor physicians had no framework. They only knew the king was rotting from the legs upward. The ulcers formed dark craters in his calves, each roughly the size of a fist. The edges were raised and inflamed, angry tissue weeping constantly. The centers were worse, blackened necrotic flesh that died but refused to fall away. Wounds tunneled deeper into muscle, creating pockets where bacteria bred in warm, oxygen-starved darkness. Physicians faced an impossible choice: let the ulcers close and risk infection turning inward into sepsis, keep them open and sentence Henry to perpetual agony and disability. They chose slow death over fast, torture over mercy, and the treatments they used were barbaric, multiple times a week, sometimes daily during severe infections. Royal physicians inserted thin metal rods called setons deep into the ulcers. These were not gentle instruments. They were textured, designed to scrape away dead tissue and keep drainage channels open. The doctor would probe the wound, searching for pus, then push the seton through living flesh until it emerged elsewhere on the leg. Henry's screams echoed through Hampton Court. Servants 3 floors away heard his voice crack as physicians dug inside his rotting legs. There was no true anesthetic, only wine to dull the edge, which Henry drank in increasingly dangerous quantities. He bit leather straps so hard they had to be replaced monthly. After each session,